Oh, well, basically the issue of Romans 13. I mean, okay, it says there we're supposed to be obedient to the law and follow along, but at the same time we're talking about the fact that, standing against lawlessness.
Exactly. And here's another example. And a lot of Christians misinterpret Romans chapter 13 and say that no matter whatever government says, we are commanded to follow whatever government says. That is just not true. In Romans chapter 13, Paul sets up the ordination of government, that God ordained government, and government was ordained to, as a protection, to set up laws and rules and regulations, and to punish people who obey those laws, and to punish evil. But when government itself becomes evil and starts perpetrating the laws of God, you can't obey government that goes contrary to God's laws. When the government says, in China that, if you have another child, you have to abort it, you can't follow that law and be followers of God. You have to disobey that law. When the government here says that you have to, basically steal money or do something else that's illegal, and not illegal as far as the law of the land, but illegal as far as God's law, you have to disobey that law. And
well, this is homosexuality right now in California. You have to accept the fact that that is a law from California, that homosexuals are married people.
Yeah, and so you have to accept that and let them be married in your church, so to speak. Well, if you do that, you're being disobedient to God's law. And when the apostles were first preaching the gospel, they got arrested by the Sanhedrin. And they said, you're breaking the law. I said, well, we acknowledge that we're breaking the law, but they basically said, if God's law supersedes that, who should we be true equals to? Said, and they said, we will be faithful to God's law. So they gave a teaching right there in the book of Acts, chapter 2, I think it was, where they talked about that it was necessary to be disobedient to the civil law when it goes against God's law. And Paul in Romans chapter 13 is not setting up a rule that you have to follow. Paul himself was put on trial and put to death for being disobedient to the civil law.
But this is why Jesus says the day is going to come when they throw you out of the synagogue and will kill you because they think that you're evil.
Yes. And so, there are many times when, civil disobedience is spoken of in the Bible. And right here in Revelation chapter 13, it became the law in Revelation chapter 13 to worship the Antichrist and to receive this mark in your right hand. And in fact, all commerce was associated with it. And the God says, if you don't disobey that law, you're going to hell. So there is a teaching right here clearly on civil disobedience. And if anyone gets this tape during the time that the Antichrist is here, I recommend that you don't get the mark of the beast, that you disobey the law and follow God's law and don't get that mark.
So that's the ultimate submission.
Yeah.
There's a discussion that in Brussels they have a supercomputer called the Beast, and they're looking at relocating it to Israel.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. An image that both talks and speaks. That could be, it could be some. Yeah, who knows what the final image is going to be like that they set up in the temple? But it's interesting that they talk about an inanimate object speaking and able to put people to death. And it's interesting, we get into science fiction stuff, but there's some, right now that they just passed a law last week or something like that. The Senate, or it didn't pass, the Senate is getting ready to vote on a bill to put 30,000 drones over America to patrol the streets of America. Basically unmanned aircraft, and these unmanned aircraft are pretty sophisticated. And they can actually fly up to people.
Focus in on whatever.
Yeah, and they can fly up to people and use tasers and stuff like that. And it's incredible the technology that they have out there that isn't even talked about. But they're talking now about, it just came in this week, that the Senate's going to put 30,000 drones patrolling unmanned aircraft drones patrolling the streets of America. That's tyranny. That's,
Well, it
this
ties
is crazy.
in with the Revelation 10, chapter 10 and 11. It talks about the beasts, or the creatures that were able to sting